for further proceeding. So thank you so much. I'll stop here and hand over to Dr. Nargis.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shahid. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, starting with the name of Allah, who is the most merciful and the most beneficial. May I proceed? I ask the permission of my worthy Vice Chancellor and the panel chair to allow me to proceed this session formally.
Please go ahead. And thank you
Thank you,
very
sir.
much for conducting such a very marvelous event, particularly in the field of higher education. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. Much humbled, sir. Worthy Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Muhammad Salim, sir, University of Sargodha, respected guest of honor, Dr. Abid Salehri, Executive Director, STPI, very dear Professor Dr. Ghulam Yasin, Chairman, Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences, Honorable Vice Chancellors from the Universities of Pakistan, distinguished keynote speakers from France and Austria, and highly esteemed deans and directors, and last but not least, my fellows and my dear students. Assalamu alaikum and very good morning, everyone. It is indeed my great pleasure and privilege to welcome you all in this prestigious forum of First International Conference on Contemporary Issues and Challenges of Whistleblowing in Higher Education Institutions of the University of Sargodha. Keeping the COVID-19 pandemic situation in mind, we have managed this event virtually. With the collaboration of STPI, I acknowledge the untiring efforts of respected Mr. Shahid Minhaz, head of CLD in STPI, and his team, particularly Mr. Adnan Hassan, in materializing today's event. This conference is aimed at exploring the prevailing practices and processes of whistleblowing and issues and challenges in this process in the public sector higher education institutions. This conference basically has engaged national and international researchers, scholars, and policy analysts on this very important topic to present and share their work, valuable suggestions, and experiences about the main and the sub-themes of the conferences. We have 3 sessions, respected members, opening session and the 2 technical sessions starting from 10 a.m. to 1700 hours or 5 p.m. according to the Pakistan time. The conference is the byproduct of HEC-funded NRPU project. I, Dr. Nargis Abbas, principal investigator, and my co-PI, my very good friend and my colleague, very dynamic personality, Dr. Uzma Ashik, won this project in 2018, worth rupees 2.86 million after the tough competition of more than 2,800 projects from all over the Pakistan. Among the other products of this project, the 2 MPhil theses were produced, and 1 PhD thesis is nearly at the stage of the completion, along with 2 research publications in renowned journals. Now, very briefly, I present an overview of my project. The term whistleblowing started in games, alluding to officials who whistled to stop illicit action or fall. Blowing a whistle by an official is very normal on playing fields or schoolyards. However, in 1970s, the term whistleblowing was embraced to separate charge from someone inside the organization rather than claims of an offense by somebody from outside the company. Research revealed that when whistleblowing became a crime in an organizational context, whistleblower is considered usually as disloyal. Hence, whistleblowing is likely to be separated and punished. Consequently, ethical silence occurs. However, it is an illusion to believe that the wrongdoing can be avoided entirely while considering whistleblowing as an act of selfishness, disclosure of sensitive information. Therefore, the issue about whether employees should report or not is still controversial due to its consequences in the form of cost of benefits. This was the inspiration behind the proposing this project, in fact, as an basically academician. I firmly believe that whistleblowing is itself a risk management mechanism. The question arises that then why people in the organization, particularly in higher education institutions, hesitate to blow the whistle? The answer, basing on our 2 years research findings, is victimization of the whistleblower. due to the lack of proper whistleblowing mechanism in higher education institutions. Thus, it is anticipating the consequences of reporting any wrongdoing and thereupon being repentant sufferer is a factor which stops or decreases the interest of the employees to blow the whistle. It has been seen that whistleblowing has negative consequences on the individual who raises the voice against some wrongdoing. These consequences include pressure and stress, such as fear of retaliation, punishment, legal confrontation, and sometimes loss of resources, fire from job by the higher concerned authorities, and in severe cases, defaming one's reputation, safety, and life threats even after the reporting. In addition to it, psychological factors are those elements that adds to the ways that a person thinks of his personality and thus effect on his decision-making power. These factors are self-esteem, organizational commitment, loyalty, emotions of fear, anger, anticipated regret, retaliation, etc. It is a feeling of fulfillment or enjoyment that worker attains from his job due to the supportive system within the organization. If a worker is satisfied with his job, he will have a high sense of responsibility towards his organization and will thus report wrongdoings for the betterment of the organization, as compared to a person with low job satisfaction. In addition, the whistleblowing aspiration also depends on the accessibility of the channel of communication within the organization. Without a proper communication channel, the management cannot work unbiasedly in dealing with the complaints. An effective whistleblowing system is inescapable, as in its absence, the overall reporting system becomes slow or ineffective. My fellow co-PI will ponder the light on these findings in detail in her presentation later in plenary session 3 or technical session 2. In third year of this project, we are at the stage of the data collection and validation of the proposed model of the whistleblowing intention and procedures within the organization. And lastly, the capacity building of the staff through trainings for the effective practices of the whistleblowing. Hence, I foresee that this knowledge partnership between the University of the Sargodha and the Sustainable Development Policy Institute would open new avenues as the collaborator and research partner for such important topics to bring a better and positive change in the society. Thank you so much. At this point, I am honored to invite worthy Vice Chancellor of University of Sargodha, Professor Dr. Muhammad Salim Mazhar, also the Pro Vice Chancellor of the University of the Punjab, the man of distinct vision and the fountainhead of illuminating ideas. And this is the true, which I am saying. Professor Dr. Muhammad Salim Azhar did his PhD in Persian from the University of Tehran. He authored and co-authored several books and research papers, numerous. His research primarily focused on Persian language, literature, Sufism, and historiography and culture, social, political, literacy, relation of South Asia, Iran, and Central Asia. He is the member of several editorial boards of distinguished journals and published numerous research articles in the international and national high impact factor journals. He is recipient of 2 gold medals awarded by the government of Iran and the Persian Language Authority, Tehran, for his outstanding Persian research works. Professor Dr. Muhammad Salim Azhar has a vast administrative experience of serving at dignified posts. His kind, generous, and visionary leadership has made this environment of University of Sargodha particularly very conducive and facilitating for the academic activities. We are highly obliged for his support and motivation to organize today's international conference. With these words, I welcome once again to Honorable Vice Chancellor for opening remarks. Please, over to you, sir.
Appreciate your efforts for having such a marvelous and tremendous conference, international conference at University of Sargodha, although it is online. And as you know that I am always requesting my worthy colleagues that please take initiative of interacting with world community, particularly in the field of higher education. Invite them from different universities and also go over there to share your experiences in higher education. I am really proud that University of Sargodha has such a prominent scholars and researchers who are doing very important research, which will surely put positive impact on the society. And I am no doubt sure that universities are the driving force of knowledge and creating knowledge and disseminating it, which will be beneficial for the human being. So, as you know that universities in Pakistan with limited resources are doing a very good job. Sargodha University, a larger university in the province of Punjab, is doing very good job. Its faculty is enthusiast and are working day and night to for creation of new knowledge and disseminating it and training people and students and general public for the socio-economics development of the region of Punjab. I am thankful to all of you. I don't want to take more time because Professor Dr. Ghulam Yasin, head of sociology department and former dean of the faculty of social sciences, will represent us because I am in another meeting which was already planned a few days ago. So I have to go over there, and I am thankful to the vice chancellors of different universities in Pakistan, particularly Dr. Uzma Qureshi, who is joining us from Multan, and other respected vice chancellors. I am thankful to all those who have helped us, supported us in this, and also Higher Education Commission, who has provided opportunity by awarding this NRPU project to the University of Sargodha's colleague. Thank you very much, and I am again thankful to all, and request you all, please, if you have time, come and visit University of Sargodha. We will be happy to welcome you all over there. Thank you very much, Dr. Uzma. Please continue, and Dr. Ghulam Yasin will represent me too, because I have to share a meeting at University of the Punjab, which was already scheduled a few days ago. Thank you very much. Dr. Uzma, over to you, please.
Thank you so much, sir. After the worthwhile and auspicious remarks of our worthy Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Muhammad Salim Mazhar, I am profusely elated to take an opportunity to introduce our respected and very dear Professor Dr. Mia Ghulam Yasin, Chairman, Department of Sociology and Criminology, Dean of Social Sciences, an idol of knowledge and experience and inspiration to all of us. Professor Dr. Mia Ghulam Yasin has extensive experience of teaching and research in social sciences, as well as of administration. He has published more than 50 research publications in scholarly journals and participated in several conferences organized at the national and international levels. Moreover, he has been a member of different administrative research bodies at the university and the national levels. He is also a member of the Higher Education Commission curriculum revision in the field of sociology and criminology. His area of specialization is social change, a very important area, social change and development, labor force participation, gender discrimination and wage gap, social exclusion, globalization, and migration. His research projects, challenges and implications of labor force migration, to Gulf countries and the labor force participation and wage gap discrimination from sociological perspective distinguishes him from other contemporary scholars of this discipline. I would like to welcome Professor Dr. Mia Ghulam Yasin Saab to proceed his talk on the whistleblowing as a good governance policy in higher education institution. Over to you, sir, please. Sir, your mic, please.
Thank you, Dr. Nargis. Good morning, everybody, and I warmly welcome all of you in this galaxy of scholars. And I feel myself privileged to be part of this very scholarly event hosted by Dr. Nargis and Dr. Uzma at University of Sargodha. As Dr. Nargis briefed very comprehensively that whistleblowing is the complex phenomena and it involves the individual decision to report any misconduct in what is happening or going to happen in his or her surrounding. It is an effective tool in the workplace as it ensures that management team in an organization creates an environment, a structure, and a culture that reduces the risk and enhances the transparency. Whistleblowing is basically done by the employee where he or she finds that ethical rules are being broken knowingly or unknowingly, and an imminent danger for the organization can be seen. So the crux of my talk today is based on three questions. Number one, we are facing ever new challenges as employees working in any sort of organization, either it's a private organization or public sector organization in general, and in particular when we blow the whistle. The second question is, we are still less prepared, rather ill prepared to address these issues and challenges which are related to whistleblowing and in relation to the good governance as well. And third question is how we can strategize the policies to protect the genuine whistleblowers. This is, of course, a big issue, which Dr. Nargis has already highlighted. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been observed that factors such as personal and situational factors affect the individual's decision of reporting wrongdoings. Whistleblowing can occur if an individual believes that his or her concern would be considered seriously and no harm or retaliation for any action will be given to the individual who is communicating his concern internally or externally. Therefore, whistleblowers is a person who actually reveals the important acts of wrongdoing, including malpractices, deception, breaking the laws, maladministration, exploitation of power, and waste of resources in an organization. The major, concern of or goal of the whistleblower is how to rectify all such malpractices, which are very common in a public or private sector organization in this complex environment. As far as the higher education sector is concerned, certain steps are being taken to introduce an incisive and a cover-all policy to initiate the practices of reporting wrongful behavior through prescribed channel. It has been observed that universities of developed countries, as a guest from France is very much around, and she will highlight how they cater for this issue and how they protect the whistleblowers in their environment. Perhaps it has been observed that universities of developed countries have somewhat a fear mechanism of reporting such practices through prescribed channels. Unlike developed world, in Pakistan, a holistic and formal, schematic and vigorous policy is still a far cry, and is in dire need to ensure transparency and accountability. Only a handful of public and private sector institutions in Pakistan have partially set few parameters of whistleblowing policy, but that too is an inconsistent way. In order to bring rational changes, need of the time is to implement the overall policy of whistleblowing in all sectors, especially in higher education institutions of Pakistan. Though at institutional level, traditional practices are being followed to report such actions, people prefer to identify and report the wrongful behavior, keeping them anonymous or confidential. However, they are severe concern about their survival. If they openly report these sort of acts of different management personnel involved in such malpractices, which are common in our culture and rest of the world, even as they have to face dire consequences in return. Consequently, not only there is a need of identifying the existing whistleblowing practices in the higher education institution of Pakistan, but also the intentions or actions of people about wrongdoings and required to be explored. Ladies and gentlemen, needless to say that universities are the main sources which create and disseminate new knowledge to transform societies. These are avenues that play a pivotal role to develop thought leadership. As we know, knowledge is a sole source of economic prosperity and growth. The drivers of socioeconomic growth now reside in the individuals who are equipped in an unprecedented mobility and freedom. This conference, as a component of HEC funded project being conducted by Dr. Nargis and Dr. Usma, aims at exploring the relationship between importance of whistleblowing and its implication with governance related issues of higher education institution in Pakistan through their research endeavors. So I appreciate their effort to and I appreciated a lot when they were in process of selecting this very important topic for their research project. They always discussed me the pros and cons of this this very important notion of social sciences, and I hope that this conference with this aim will ultimately bring some good strategies to formulate policies and laws even to protect the whistleblowers and to stop those who are not genuine whistleblowers. At this point of time, we're confronting with the phenomena with you know, two sides. One side is the protection is not available for the genuine whistleblowers. And second is, there are so many ingenuine whistleblowers are very much around, particularly in the polarized organization, which are politically polarized and motivated organizations. Being an academic person, I've been witness of all that for the last 30 years. And at times I've been the victim of, of such whistleblowings when I used to be the member of different academic bodies like syndicate, which is the highest administrative body of the universities. Whenever I put my note of dissent on certain decision which were made on the basis of personal whims and wishes, so I had to undergone through the dire consequences and whatever you can say, some penalties as well. So this is very, very difficult for the people who are working in, particularly in the autonomous bodies, where the employees are not have some sort of freedom to point out such wrongdoings which are contrary to our rules and regulations in practice. So how we can protect the genuine people who always try to blow whistle in a particular situation whenever they feel that the things are not going into the right direction. So this project would ultimately provide us the way forward to deal with such abnormal situation, and we will certainly take guidance from the outcome or findings of this very important research project to deal with this phenomena. And I assure you, Dr. Nargis, I will try my level best to send your recommendation to the policy makers or the lawmakers, particularly to develop some laws for protection of such peoples who are doing jihad in such sort of organizations and who are striving hard for raising their voice against certain malpractices, particularly in the universities, public sector universities of Pakistan. With these words, I would especially, I am thankful to Dr. Slary Saab, STPI Director, and Dr. Uzma Qureshi, Dr. Abid Qureshi Saab, and all others, Adnan Hassan, Aqib Suhail Saab, and especially my thanks goes to Professor Dr. Salim Mazhar, who spared some time from his very busy schedule, because they're going to, Punjab University is going to convene a meeting of Senate tomorrow and convocation day after tomorrow. In the end, I am really grateful and feel privileged to be part of this very important scholarly discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. You have raised thought-provoking aspects and very significant questions. And you have always been a source of inspiration for us, sir. Thank you so much for being there for us whenever we need some help. After a very illuminating talk of Professor Dr. Mia Ghulam Yasin, it is my privilege, great honor, to welcome our guest of honor, prestigious personality, Dr. Abid Qayyum Suleri, Executive Director of Sustainable Development Policy Institute. SDPI is a premier policy research think tank. PhD in Food Security from University of Greenwich, United Kingdom. By profession, Dr. Abid Suleri is agricultural economist, a renowned person and analyst on political economy analysis, policy planning, and economic growth analysis. With extensive experience, he has been the member of Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, National Advisory Council of Planning Commission of Pakistan, member Pakistan Climate Change Council, member National Coordinate Committee on Agricultural Transformation, member of Agriculture University's Vice Chancellor Search Committee, Government of Punjab, International Policy Making Advisory Board member of Intergovernmental Organizations, CARIC, Central Asia Regional Economic Cooperation, think tank networks, member of Permanent Organizing Committee of South Asia Economic Summit, represented Pakistan official delegations, including United Nations Sustainable Development Summit, UNFCCC Conference of Parties, and WTO ministerial conferences. He is also editor-in-chief of SDPI peer-reviewed journal, Journal of Development Policy, Research and Practice. So let us have the privilege of listening to the message of our prestigious guest of honor, Dr. Abid Suleri, please.
Thank you, Dr. Nargis Abbas. Very early good morning to our guests who have joined from Europe. I know it's quite early for them, and a good morning to all the guests who have joined from Pakistan. It's indeed a great pleasure and honor to join hands with academia. STPI always finds it useful and learning whenever we collaborate with universities, and we'll definitely keep this tradition on. And I would like to extend, take this opportunity to extend congratulations to University of Sargodha as well. Within 2 decades, University of Sargodha has created its impact, and its presence is, of course, felt in policy circles as well as in academia. Now, regarding today's topic, to me, whistleblowing is a mean, and it is a mean to reach our end goal, and the end goal is what Sustainable Development Goals tells us, leaving no one behind. Now, what was the life before whistleblowing? It was Darwinian values, survival of the fittest, and in order to survive, of course, the fittest, they had to adopt to whatever policies were there, whatever means they could use or misuse. And of course, because of all this, they could survive. Now, as human history, it transcended from a hunting and gathering community to agriculture, to industrialization, to a knowledge community. We also started learning that we cannot leave anyone behind, because it would have a direct impact, and it would have a direct impact on peace and justice, goal number 16 of Sustainable Development Goal. It would have a direct impact on the whole idea of sustainable societies. It would have a direct impact on inclusive and sustainable growth, and it would have a direct impact on life. So that's why we realized that human civilizations, they started appreciating whistleblowers, which are sort of early warners. So as in disaster risk management or in climate change, we value early warning system, and that they warn you of some sort of storm coming or some sort of disaster coming. The whistleblowers in our offices, in our organizations, in our societies, they actually warn us of something brewing which can lead into a storm. And that is where it becomes even more important in higher educations. Now, if I look at higher education institutes, there can be perhaps 3 types of things on which whistleblowers, they can inform us. First and foremost is unethical intellectual practices, plagiarism, data fudging, or hiding some of your research findings because it would have some sort of repercussions, either positive or negative, or cooking your findings, etc. So this is one aspect of it, which for years and for decades were left to the discretion of supervisors and students. Then is the second aspect, which Professor Dr. Ghulam Yasin, he alluded very appropriately, and that is about the whole concept of meritocracy. Who owns what, who deserves what, promotions, appointments, demotions, etc. So all of it, again, whistleblowers, they can alert about some of these things. And the third is the financial corruption, or the corrupt practices of senior management or middle management or lower tier officials. Now, when we look at the three, of course, all three of them, they are equally damaging to the credibility of the institute, to the credibility of the whole educational system. And that is where the role of whistleblowers, those become very crucial and very important. But as Dr. Ghulam Yasin rightly mentioned, that we need to look at those about whom the complaint is being made, their point of view. And I would like to say here that the principle innocent until proven guilty, that needs to be there. So while one should not undermine the information provided by the whistleblowers, one should also try to see that those against whom some complaint is being made, they are also provided some sort of opportunity or a fair chance to prove their innocence. And I'm saying it because of my years of experience serving on different boards, both corporate sector as well as the government sector bodies. So one of the things that as board members we have to tackle is about complaints about the senior management or complaint about management. And as a board member, we always try to provide ample opportunity to the accused so that they can prove their innocence if they have anything in their defense. But the fundamental thing that arises that why do we reach to a stage where someone has to blow the whistle? And that is perhaps either bypassing rules, bypassing the principles, the curb on access to information, lack of transparency, most of those things which can now be actually curtailed through our rapid transition towards digital governance. So I believe that with data and with digital technology and with digital governance, we can actually minimize the incidents to begin with about which some sort of complaint has to be actually raised, or some eyebrows have to be raised if we can stick to the principles of transparency, stick to the principle of freedom of information, stick to the principles of empowerment of voices, giving everyone in the organization a fair chance to say what they feel, so that they don't have to actually rely on whistleblowing, but they should be able to say something in open if they can. And by improving that sort of governance, of course, the fear that Dr. Nargis mentioned in the beginning, fear of victimization of whistleblower, that can be overcome. So while we need to encourage and appreciate the whistleblowing culture, we also need to work on the reasons that lead to such whistleblowing, and we also need to work on values and principles that would actually enhance transparency, and that would enhance the empowerment of communities, empowerment of people, empowerment of students, empowerment of employees so that they can say at the face whatever they would like to say. I look forward to the deliberations of this one-day conference, and as a member of different policy-making forums, including Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, I can assure you that STPI would try to play its role in bridging research policy gaps, the policy recommendations that we will get from this conference. I will try my level best to liaise with the relevant forums and relevant policymakers, and we will try to improve the system. And once again, I commend the great efforts by academia to touch upon a very sensitive topic, which of course has become a taboo and a stigma to be discussed in open. And I hope that this beginning would lead to permanent solutions and improvement in our governance of higher education institutes in particular. Thank you very much for providing me this opportunity and for joining hands with STPI.
Thank you so much. I extend my thanks for joining hands for this event. We cannot thank you enough, sir. It's really a wonderful speech and wonderful ideas and significant points. I must say these were the food for the thought for us, which you have mentioned in your talk. And it's really a great honor for us that you are being the partner of the yours in this auspicious event. I must say that this event and this endeavor may not be possible easily without your kind support and your valuable suggestions and all the team work which you have provided to the University of Sargodha. I extend my thanks on the behalf of my university, my head of the institution, our dean, my co-worker, my team, my co-PI. Thank you so much, sir, for this illuminating speech and very thought-provoking elements you have, especially regarding the fudging of the findings, data, cooking of the data. These are those academic dishonesty, which is also, you can say, a black hole for the higher education institutions, which we need to overcome in order to extend our quality of education, or you can say the excellence in the higher education. Thank you so much, sir. And I hope you will, in the future, you will definitely help us and support us in this endeavor also. Thank you so much. My next dignitary to honor us with her presence is Dr. Mihaela Viorica Rositoro. Dr. Mihaela holds a PhD in lifelong learning policies, being specialist in educational policies developed by international organizations, the European Union and the national governments. In virtue of this expertise, she is getting involved in academic research, being currently associate researcher at the University of Bourgogne-Franche-Comté, Laboratory Eliade in France, and at the University of Helsinki in Finland, as well as the associate professor at IUTM, University Institute of the Third Age of the Montreal, Canada. Previously, Dr. Mihaela graduated in Orthodox theology, social work in Cluj-Napoca, Romania, and in law, educational and political sciences, ethics, and human rights in Strasbourg, France. She worked at the European Court of Human Rights at Strasbourg and at the Council of Europe at the Universities of Strasbourg, Franche-Comté, and Cluj-Napoca, having published in drugs addiction and lifelong learning policies, right to education and educational policies, media education and religious education, active aging and gerontology. She also worked at the European Science Foundation, Science Connect, being involved in peer review mission in humanities and social sciences, and in coordination of Europe-funded projects focused on RI, responsible research and innovation under SWAF, mean science with and for society, especially for doc-enhanced project, aiming to enhancing and integrating transferable skills into the doctoral training. Driving by a strong intellectual curiosity, Madame Dr. Viorica has awarded by the European Union's program Erasmus for young entrepreneurs, and during her stay in Finland, she created the personal blossoming pedagogy, promoting innovative pedagogical models and raising awareness about the importance of books and reading literacy for better education for learners at all ages. She will carry her talk Right to Education and Educational Policies in the European Union between communitarian law and whistleblowing mechanism. Over to you, Dr. Mihaela Rosidoro.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Thank you to you, Nargis, and thank you to all the people from the organizer committee. It is a great pleasure for me to be with you this morning and today for this extraordinary event. In fact, I think that is for the first time when I attend the conference in this part of the world, and so my joy is double. It's not single joy. So I'm very happy and thank you very much for your invitation. After this wonderful conferences about the institutional, let's say, whistleblowing, as my colleague Nargis said, I will share with you some knowledge on an original approach concerning the whistleblowing in education at the European level, which includes two different actors, the European Union on the one hand and the member states on the other hand, and I will take the role of whistleblower. I will put this helmet this morning to understand that, to explain to you a little the influence of the European Union in the educational policies of the member states. And we will see that the higher education, in fact, is the level of education where this influence of the European Union is the highest. And of course, with the reform of Bologna and with the different strategies developed and programs developed at the European Union, I will explain to you more in detail. So we will see that the policymakers, the European policymakers, will make an influence, make an increasing influence in the member states in education. And so for that reason, there are, let's see, at the macro level, within the European Union, it is a real approach of whistleblowing in education. So if you agree, I will share the PowerPoint I prepare for that in order to make easier my presentation and to help you to follow me better. So I don't know if okay, and so thank you. As I told you, the idea is to understand more which is the influence of the European Union in the field of education. And so the content of my presentation will be in different parts. I will explain to you a little the context of this educational and higher education policies in European Union. I will explain more the principle of subsidiarity and the right to education, and after that we will see which are the mechanisms, in fact, of this whistleblowing at the education level, the open method of coordination, the different strategies of education, strategy of Lisbon, strategy Europe 2020, and the different main tools, for example, the key competencies or the benchmarks. Can you please share my presentation, or you don't, or it is not possible?
Sir Adnan, kindly allow her to
Ma'am,
share her
I have allowed her to share her screen.
Okay, okay. Oh, sorry, I didn't know. Okay, I will, in this case, sorry. Just a minute, I am really sorry for that. Okay. It is okay now. Can you see my screen? Or
Yes, Dr. Mihaela, you can see.
okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. So as I told you, in the European Union, we have currently 28 member states. So this
Dr. Mihaela, can you put this on presentation mode? In the right corner, near 72%.
it's okay now. It's okay for you?
इनकी वो full screen कर दें तो.
Okay, let's see. What should I do? Sorry.
Where there is 72% is written at the right corner, there is a point of diaphragm. You can
It
click
is
this button.
readable, and if she may continue, if Mihala may continue, so
Yeah.
it is readable. And let me request to Mr. Adnan to make it a full screen.
Okay, okay, thank you.
All right.
But I will stop the share screen. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So as I started to explain to you, the European Union was created in 1957 with the Treaty of Rome, and there was not mention on education, not at all.
Professor Mihala, so,
the
the screen is vanished. Could you please share your screen again?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, of course. Okay.
Yes, this is fine. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much to you. So, in fact, the European Union was created as a common market, and there was not mention on education, but it was linked to the common market. It was a mention on the professional training in this treaty. After that, based on this, we will see that so let's see the case law evaluated little by little. 20 years later, we had the judgment Gravier, led by the Court of Justice of the European Union concerning the higher education. And it was stated that the professional training also covers the higher education. So little by little, we start to see that this influence was more and more important. What happened that? So we started to introduce the education in the treaties. But in fact, in the treaties, we have some mentions. We have the margin of appreciation, which allows the member states to decide for the education, because it is education, it is a responsibility for the national authorities. not for the European Union. And we have also the principle of subsidiarity, which determines the level of education of the European intervention in the member states. And in fact, when we speak about education, we have from 10 years ago a taxonomy of competencies, which kind of influence can the European Union give to education. And we will find that for the education, the European Union officially has a complementary competence in culture, education, etc. But we will see that in fact, there is a big gap between the legal statements and the reality. How exactly? We started with the right to education, which is currently guaranteed in the treaties of the European Union. In which way? In fact, the European Union shall contribute to the development of the quality of education by encouraging cooperation between member states. And it is exactly what happened with the program Erasmus and Erasmus Plus, we all know. And if necessary, by supporting the complementing their action, but respecting the responsibility of the member states on three things. The context of teaching, because it is important, for example, in Germany to have to teach the history of Germany. In France, the history of France, etc. The organization of education system, and of course, the cultural and linguistic diversity. So for the moment, it's not possible to have a common language in all the European Union. It's not guaranteed by the treaties. After that, we have, of course, for the right to education, we have another charter, the European Charter of Human Rights, which guarantees the right for everyone to education and to have access to vocational and continuing training, and for the parents, the right to ensure the education and teaching of their children in conformity with their religious, philosophical, and pedagogical conviction. This is the legal action of the European Union in education. Let's see what happens in fact. So in fact, there are some mechanisms, legal or practical mechanisms, which during the years made the influence of the European Union greater and greater, higher and higher in the member states. How exactly? Inspired by the employment policy, by the common market, in 2000 was implemented this open method of coordination at the level of education. What does exactly mean? There are three pillars for the comparison of the education. So the peer evaluation, for example, the evaluation by other university, by other schools, etc., by other educational institutions. After that, we have the exchange of best practices. Of course, this is focused on mobility, European mobility, or mobility beyond the European Union. And we have the benchmarks. So at the European level, in order to compare and to measure after that the influence of the European Union in the member states, it was decided to have some benchmarks, common benchmarks, for all the member states. And in fact, we started so in 2000, and at the European level, we have the policies for 10 years. And for these first 10 years, it was decided to have 5 benchmarks: the early school level, the participation in lifelong learning, the low achievement people in reading literacy, the graduates in mathematics, science, and technology, and the young people with upper secondary education. So we have 5 benchmarks, common benchmarks for all the member states. It was like a pressure from the European Union on each country to achieve these objectives. But finally, we will see that among the 5 objectives or benchmarks, only 1 was achieved, and more than expected. Do you know which one? We will see together. In fact, it is the higher education. So the benchmarks on graduates on mathematics, science, and
Mathematics and science and technology. Yeah.
And as we see in the graph here, it is the only which was achieved and more than expected. For what reason? One of the reasons is exactly this Erasmus mobility, or different programs of mobility, which European Union put into practice from 10 years ago, before the strategy. But for the other one, it was very a shame. For that reason, we started to create the next strategy for the next 10 years with the same 4 benchmarks. But we added, for the skills in reading, we added the skills in mathematics and science. And at the end, we added also some other new benchmarks for the mobility, which is increasing every year, internal and external mobility, the employability, and the childhood. And of course, we have this program of mobility, which is also a tool from the European Union to influence more and more the member states in education. And we see that over the years, there were different programs: Comenius program, Erasmus, which is the most common and the most known program. We had Leonardo for the vocational education and training, Grundvik for adult learners, Comenius for students, and Erasmus Plus, which is exactly a higher education program developed to increase the mobility all around the world. So we have European countries. It's compulsory to have a European country and in the consortium, and after that we can enlarge the consortium. Another tool which was developed is the creation of 8 core competencies for all member states. So all European citizens must have these 8 core competencies. And here we find the communication in mother tongue, the communication in a foreign language, the mathematical, scientific, and technological competencies, and of course, nowadays, the digital competencies. And after that, we have more, let's say human competencies, the learning to learn, the social and civic competencies, the entrepreneurship, and of course, the cultural competencies. For what reason it is important to understand that? So as I tried to explain to you, at the European Union, there is a way now. We are going in the direction of a common educational policy, which is a great debate between the member states. Because on one hand, the European Union would like, for example, to have the responsibility on education as it is the case for agricultural policy, for example. But in the other hand, the member states want to keep their responsibility on education, because the education, the content of education is also linked to the culture, to the identity of a country, etc. But we see that there are some indicators that allow us to say that there is a common way to a common education, especially at the higher education, because of the transferable credit for education and the reform of Bologna. And of course, the idea is between that, beyond that, to understand that it's extremely important that for education, what exactly we need at the primary, secondary, or higher education. The most important things is to understand that when we educate, which is the value, the most important value for us. For example, for the French Republic, is the equality, to give to all people the same thing. For the Nordic country, for Finland, is the equality. It means to give to each student what he or she needs. And nowadays there is a new trend in the field of education, especially in the Nordic country or in Canada, is the inclusion. So the idea being to cancel the obstacle which make a difference between people. And so this was my presentation. I hope that it is now more easier for you to understand that at the European Union we have a real trends of European influence and pressure on education, and there is gap between the communitarian law, the official law, and this whistleblowing mechanism I tried to explain to you. So thank you very much for your attention, and all my best wishes for all of you, and I hope to see you face to face one day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mihaela. It was wonderful hearing you, and wonderful explanation about the European Union and their policy in order to develop their generations, particularly the 8 skills which you have mentioned, and MST especially. Earlier, some 10 or 12 years before, they were working on the STEM. And while going through my literature during my doctorate, I found that with the passage of time, the struggle of creating the, you can say, the new generation towards the STEMs, science, technology, and mathematics, they put 25 years on this, and they could only increase 20% of the women involvement in the science and technology and mathematical sciences. Now, I'm very happy to see that they are moving towards MST. And it is wonderful. We will, a lot of thoughts have been gone through my mind while you were speaking, and Dr. Abdul Salehri Saab. And I think it is a great opportunity for all of us that extend our hands towards the common benefit of the humanity and the organizations, not only in the Pakistan, but also in the European Union. We can, if we can bridge up certain phenomenon between Pakistan and the European Union, as you have expertise and you have experience in working with the European Council and the Human Rights Court. So I hope that one day we can bring something good for the humanity and beneficial for our institutions. And I really thankful to you for sparing some time this much early in the morning and joined us and gave us the opportunity to listen to you. I now ask Sir Shahid to continue from this point. The session over to you, Dr. Shahid.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nargis, for this very wonderful moderation. And thank you so much, Dr. Mihaile, for this very thought-provoking presentation. I think without delaying further, let me invite uh, Dr. Uzma Qureshi. She's the Vice Chancellor of the Women University, Multan. Before inviting her to share her thoughts, let me say that Dr. Uzma is one of the dynamic person. She's been contributing in the academia since long, and she's also the member of the consortium of the universities known as CASPER, Council for the Advancement of Sustainable Policy on Education and Research, in align with Sustainable Development Policy Institute. I experienced her thoughts and really fan to listen to her again and again. Dr. Uzma is also a genuine dynamic leader of the current century, that she is leading from the front an institution which is purely for the women. And I think um, in my opinion, women are facing more challenges as compared to men, because men has the access to different forums, whereas the female and the women, so they are somehow neglected one way or the other. And we would like to listen truly from her heart that what sort of challenges that Dr. Uzma you feel that there are in a society which is a male dominating society, and what sort of challenges that are there in the institutions, particularly in the academic institution, higher education institution, and what measures that are being taken by you and your colleagues to cater and to counter such challenges. I'll not take much of the time, but very briefly that with this very brief introduction, let me invite Dr. Uzma, the Vice Chancellor of the Women University, Multan. The forum is here. Over to you, Dr. Uzma. Dr. Uzma, are you there?
I think, sir, Dr. Usma has disconnected
Uh, Perhaps she is
from the
disconnected.
opening.
So let me welcome Professor Dr. Atar Mehboob Saab. He is the Vice Chancellor of the Islamic University, Balfour. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. We have started this session at 10 o'clock, and but anyway, thank you for. We know that you've been busy, and I received the message that you will not be able to join before 11. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us. Sir, as this event is being organized by University of Sargodha and the Sustainable Development Policy Institute on a very, very critical topic, which has been selected by Dr. Nargis and the Professor of the University. And so without any further delay, I will request you to please share your thoughts, your speech, that what sort of challenges that you see or you observe in an academic and educational institution, and what could be the remedies, how this challenge or this issue can be addressed in a way to have harmony or a very comfortable place to learn and to listen and to enhance our knowledge. So over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Shahid. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I'm very much thankful to the organizers of this international conference on contemporary issues and challenges, particularly of whistleblowing in higher education institutions. And based on my 7 years of experience at the topmost position of a university or higher education institution, which is a vice chancellor, I will try to share my views. The whole idea of protection for whistleblowing is in any society, wherever there is rule of law, there is accountability. So we would want that any particular malpractice or fraud, especially with public funds or any other misuse of authority which affects the public interest, it is reported, and those who are responsible for carrying out such malpractices should not be able to get away without accountability, and they should face their day in the court. So in any society which is based on a rule of law and constitutionalism, this idea is very vital. We know as human beings, we have a tendency, a natural tendency to take negative criticism, not in a positive way. So many times we are also, it has been observed that people in authority tend to hide if they are hide their actions to evade accountability. So we agree with that idea. So in Pakistan, however, there are two sides of this coin. On the one hand, we do see this particular problem, which is the topic of your session today, is that those who report such malpractices, whether from among the faculty or the staff members, may face retaliatory measures, and those could be very subtle measures, like being isolated, being not assigned work, or facing some sort of mental torture, or those could even be more direct financial penalties of loss of some sort of an income which is part of which is being given to other faculty members, etc. So we do understand that that this can happen in Pakistani institutions, and the whole problem is that those who are to conduct accountability of those who are in authority. So for example, let us be very particular to the case of a university where the vice chancellor is all in all, as per the University Act, the vice chancellor has almost all the relevant powers. Of course, many of the powers do lie with the syndicate, but being a chief executive and an operational head, the vice chancellor exercises a great many powers which are not even documented in many cases. So we do understand that it's a very asymmetric relationship in a university. The vice chancellor is very highly powerful, and the rest of the staff members, either they feel themselves disempowered, or they actually don't have so much power as per the law. Some of the universities, even their syndicates, do not have representation from the faculty members. So in those cases, the faculty members, being part of the set of employees of the university, really don't have any legal power to present their point of view when the decision-making process is taking place. So now coming back to the fact that if there is a whistleblower, he or she can suffer consequences. We do agree with that. But the thing is, then when it comes to the provincial authorities, those who are the appointing authorities of the vice chancellor, which include the chancellor and the chief minister, so they should have a mechanism in place for such matters to be reported, where the whistleblowers can report the matters to them and get the protection as per the law, and the accountability process can take place. So this is missing in Pakistan, because one of the reasons is that the very appointing authorities of the vice chancellor are the chief minister and the chancellor. So if the vice chancellor or the chief executive turns out to be a culprit, or someone who is practicing certain malpractices, even financial fraud, then indirectly it is taken as a criticism of, let's say, the appointing authorities, the chancellor and the chief minister. So now it becomes a matter of pride and prestige to protect the vice chancellor, which I don't think is a good thing. So having said that, and having agreed with the fact that that the accountability of the chief executives is not happening at that level where it should happen, but on the other hand, being a vice chancellor for 7 years, unfortunately, the vice chancellors, even when they are not guilty of any malpractice, they suffer a lot of media trial, and the agencies of the state, like the anti-corruption establishment, like the NAB, and like even provincial mechanisms, they rely on a complaint-based process. And anyone in the university who is not happy with the policies of the vice chancellor, those policies, even if they may be in the interest of the institution, so those elements, they tend to launch campaigns, and many vice chancellors suffer mental torture themselves, even when they are performing their duties with integrity and honesty and full devotion and dedication. But they are facing a lot of these campaigns through these institutions that we have in our state, which are complaint based, and keeping myself to the English language limits my vocabulary a little bit. So what happens is, it depends on the volume or the number of complaints. So these number of complaints, and the way the inquiries are done in a prolonged way. So the vice chancellor keeps getting a letter every month from some agency or the other, and has to answer, and then there are follow-ups, and then even from my personal experience, I can say that many of these agencies, even though by law they are not authorized to work on anonymous complaints, but even anonymous complaints can get them started, and they start hounding the vice chancellor. So like all other matters in Pakistan, we have made a mess of this whole thing. While as being a vice chancellor myself, I am all for the accountability of those vice chancellors who, even though they have been selected through a search committee or transparent process, but themselves they are guilty of legal malpractices, like financial fraud, or like other malpractices which constitute clear violations of the law. And here we are not talking about those decisions which the vice chancellor has to make in the interest of the university, but however, those decisions where the vice chancellor, for his or her own personal benefit or the personal benefit of a selected group of people, makes decisions which are in violation of the law. My suggestion and my request would be for the authorities to set up a separate process for the accountability of the vice chancellors, which is handled at the level of the chancellor's office and the appointing authority, which may be the chief minister's office, but it may be a single office. And then the whistleblowers should be protected. Even their identities could be kept hidden at that point in time, from that office till the whole investigation and inquiry is clearly done. But at the same time, because once again in Pakistan we have this tendency in the society that has existed for many decades, and even from the British Raj, that people are in the lesser developed areas, they have a tendency to keep submitting allegations and accusations and sensationalizing their complaints in a way that creates an impression of wrongdoing, whereas the individual in authority, the vice chancellor, is not actually doing anything against the law and running the institution. So I think the mechanism should be like this, that there should be some index a measurement from every institution. If the institution is running well, and then we have complaints against a vice chancellor, then those complaints may be redundant or superfluous. But however, if we have some feedback mechanism which gives an indication that there may be something wrong in the institution, not just based on that complaint, but there may be some other independent parameters like survey feedback of faculty, students, and staff. What is the overall level of satisfaction? Because the vice chancellor, like all managers and all leaders, has to balance things as a whole, and for each individual matter, sometimes the matters are intermingled. So his or her decision on a single matter may not be a representative of his whole methodology or his whole leadership style. His whole leadership as a whole may be towards making things better and trying to stop malpractices. But on a single incident, taking out of context, it may appear that he may be acting in a way which is not conforming to the law or etc. Because the vice chancellor is responsible overall. If the institution does well, it also goes to the credit of the vice chancellor. If there is something wrong, the whole failure is also the responsibility of the vice chancellor. This is due to the highly asymmetric power or authority which is given to the position of vice chancellors in our system. And because most other people are not willing to take responsibility, so it ends up as the vice chancellor, he or she has to take a whole lot of more responsibility in order to get his or her vision implemented. So it does appear like that he or she is a person who is trying to exercise too much power. It is not power, but rather responsibility, because others who may not be in that position, like deans or other senior faculty, because of fear of audit or because of fear of certain accountability processes, they may not be willing to become part of the decision-making process. But the vice chancellor has a fixed tenure of 4 years, and he or she has to perform within that window of opportunity and show a significant or dramatic improvement in the institution during the period that he or she was at the helm of the affairs. Because it's just a contractual position, there's not a second tenure is neither guaranteed, and in most cases vice chancellors do not get a second tenure. Most vice chancellors are then consigned to the trash can of history after they complete their first tenure. So my whole thing is that that we have made a mess of this whistleblowing thing. Its effectiveness is not there because the accountability process is messed up. If we fix the accountability process and then we give protection to the whistleblowers, then it makes sense. But in the scenario that is prevailing, that the vice chancellor is held accountable through the media, through blackmail by those elements in some small cities. It may be a collusion between certain journalists and some, let's say, lawyers who do not have enough income. They collude to just try to extort money or benefits out of the institution of the university. So the thing is, we have to have a strong accountability process for vice chancellors. At the same time, the whistleblowers have to be given legal protection so that we are able to counter the malpractices or frauds that may go on, that I believe that are going on in certain academic institutions, but the system is not able to respond to them in a timely manner because of this mess. So I would wholeheartedly say that we must, as academics, come up and propose some accountability forum which at the same time protects the whistleblowers and does a accountability of the vice chancellors or those who are in the position of decision making and authority at the university. So this is from my end, and thankful to the organizers for giving me an opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Atar Mehboob sir, for this very mind-blowing, very heart-provoking, thought-provoking your sharing of thoughts and presentation, virtual presentation. I think you have raised very valid questions, and I was just noticing that it will not be wrong if I may say कि मैं किसके हाथ पे अपना लहू तलाश करूं डॉक्टर साहब so we are thinking that the head of the institution or the responsible for that but we have listened to you and now we are realizing that perhaps it's a vicious circle of malpractices and perhaps there is a need to have a durable and sustainable governance mechanism within the academic institutions so that every person should be accountable to the rule of law. You very rightly mentioned that there is a need to have a very durable and sustainable model and mechanism in place in all the institutions, in all the universities. And perhaps you rightly mentioned that if a vice chancellor is a highly learned person, a highly academic person is accountable to a political sort of supported chief minister or the governor might be a very low in education. So itself, there is a need to blow the whistle on this very pertinent concern. And you very rightly mentioned that accountability forum, maybe within the higher education commission that may need to establish. And I think so these are the very valid concerns and points that you have raised, and we are so happy that you raised this question. And being STPI representative, as my executive director Dr. Abid Kimsleri mentioned that so STPI will make it sure that these voices should be heard at the parliament, at the policy makers, and so the policy research gap may be addressed. And of course, higher education commission is the key. And we are lucky that we have Dr. Nadia Tahir from the Higher Education Commission is with us, although she is not the panelist, but she is here. She will be presenting her speech in the next panel, where she would be chairing the panel. But let me very briefly ask Dr. Nadia. So, would you like to say a few words that you have been listening all these very valuable thoughts of the learner professors and dean and the vice chancellors? So, would you like to say something here?
Uh, Thank you, Shahid. Thank you, SDPI, University of Sargodha. My heartfelt thank you for Nargis and Uzma for conducting and arranging this important conference. My special thank to our international participant from France. You all talk so eloquently and nicely on the subject. There is a need to have proper mechanism of whistleblowing in the universities. Usually it is thought that whistleblowing is not for educational institutions, and there is not financial embezzlement or something which we can think of about educational universities, but our professors and deans and vice chancellors have rightly mentioned that there is a need to have a proper mechanism installed in universities where everybody should be given the opportunity to speak from their heart. But the important thing, which is a menace in our universities, is that usually we talk about an issue which concerns us or directly affecting us. When we are talking about a whistleblowing issue, it is an issue of a public litigation. And when we think that this is going to be damaging, this wrongdoing is damaging for the future of the organization. Maybe I'm not directly affected, or it is a concern, issue of a concern to me directly, but a wrongdoing or a malpractice in the organization. So my humble submission is that when we talk about unethical practices, there are two conflicting things which are there, which the government, Punjab government, because it is directly relevant authority for University of Sargodha. PIDA, it has an indemnity clause in it, and it says that if you go against or speak against certain rules, regulations in the university, they can be penalized and no questions or public hearing can be given. So PIDA is having an indemnity clause where you cannot question the authority of the vice chancellor if a faculty member is highlighting a wrongdoing. Secondly, there is this wave of whistleblowing started from KP when they have this act in KP in 2016, and now we have a bill passed on the whistleblowing in 2019 in Pakistan. For the whole Pakistan, and universities are no exception. But unfortunately, it only covers financial embezzlement, fraud, corruption, and lapses in governance, but not unethical practices, academic unethical practices in universities. So my humble submission from this forum through SDPI and from all of you, that we need to put a mechanism in place where we can highlight unethical practices, especially when there are 900 faculty members have been highlighted internationally, those involved in articles publication where the data is being fudged or not accurately presented. So more than 100 articles have been on the watch list and retracted. Then there are some reports of plagiarism. So the first thing, that right to voice is one of the basic right. It should be given. The person should say whatever he or she wants to say without fear, without prejudice, and without the penalty, fear of the penalty. Mechanism has to be there. We have to correct the conflicting laws where the employees of the universities are not speaking on unethical practices. You have rightly mentioned that Higher Education Commission has to come forward and make laws stringent enough where anybody can speak. I have received in online education portal 300 plus grievances highlighted by the faculty and the students. But unfortunately, there is no mechanism where we can interrogate or investigate these grievances. So my takeaway is that code of honor has to be there in the university, code of conduct has to be there in the university, there has to be right to voice, and fair practice must be available to all faculty members who would like to speak on the issue. With this, I again thank you all the participants, especially Nargis and Uzma, for highlighting such an important issue. Thank you very much.
अभी भिजवा रहा हूँ. Thank you. जी जी मैं भी करता हूँ. जी, thank you so much, Dr. Nadia, for your valuable thoughts and comments. We would love to listen to you more in the next panel. Before I formally say thank you to all the panelists, let me invite Professor Dr. Ghulam Yasin Saab, the Dean of the Faculty of University of Sargodha, to summarize the discussion which has been held since morning. So, sir, would you like to conclude this panel with key thoughts in a few minutes? Ji, Dr. Sahab, your mic is off, sir. Yes.
First of all, I would like to thanks all the participants who shared their valuable thoughts, especially Professor Dr. Mehboob Atar Mehboob Saab, Vice Chancellor, Islamic University, Bahawalpur, who presented his talk based on his personal anecdotes, and Dr. Mahila from France. She wonderfully presented her experiences in European community regarding whistleblowing issues, protection laws, and etc. And Dr. Slary Saab, who shared superb sort of comments or his thought-provoking ideas about this burning issue of all the public sector organization, particularly the universities, who are facing this issue due to highly polarized places of this country. So the need of the hour is to strengthen the genuine whistleblowers, I think, and we have to support them, and we have to protect them, and particularly the vice chancellors, who are the main stakeholders and the leaders of the academic world. They must give space to the people who can raise their voices in their statutory bodies, but in a positive manner. I don't believe in negativity in academic world. They must share their dissenting positivity to uplift the standard and quality of higher education in the country. So my special thanks goes to the participant who spared their precious time out of their busy schedule. And I congratulate Dr. Nargis Abbas and Dr. Uzma Ashik and Dr. Slary Saab for this joint venture, and particularly the Higher Education Commission, who supported well while giving funds for this very project, to highlight the issues of whistleblowers and to suggest some measures to take into the mainstream of lawmaking and policy making, so that they could perform their duties and functions in an adequate manner. So finally, on behalf of University of Sargodha, on behalf of Vice Chancellor, who was very much around in the morning, I once again pay my gratitude to all the participants for joining us, and especially Dr. Nargis, who organized this valuable event for all of us to share our views. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Sir, thank you so much for your concluding remarks. It was really wonderful to listen all of the panelists. Um, Before I conclude, before I say thank you, so the last takeaway from my side, that in this panel, we perhaps realize that there is a need to blow the whistle, um, to have a good governance mechanism within the higher education institutions through Higher Education Commission. And perhaps this is the need of the time. And thank you so much, Professor Dr. Salim Azhar Saab, the Vice Chancellor, University of Sargodha, Professor Dr. Amia Ghulam Yasin Saab, Dean, Faculty, University of Sargodha. Really thank you for your valuable thoughts. And I'm really thankful to Dr. Abid Suleri Saab, the Executive Director, Sustainable Development Policy Institute, for his very commendable thoughts and ideas, and extending full support to to take up this issue to the policymakers for the reforms in the higher education system. Thank you, Dr. Uzma Qureshi, the Vice Chancellor, the Women University, um, Multan. Very special thanks to Professor Dr. Mehboob Atar Saab for your generous thoughts and genuinely blowing the whistle to improve and to bring reforms in this system. Very special thanks to Dr. Nadia Taher for joining us, Dr. Taher Rashid for joining us this panel, this opening panel. And there are no words for Dr. Nargis Abbas and Dr. Usma Ashik for putting all the efforts to design, to develop this idea, to conduct this research, and finally to hold this conference. Thank you to Professor Dr. Mihale from France for joining and sharing her wonderful presentation and representing the Europe perhaps. Last but not the least, I'll extend my deep gratitude and thanks to the supporter, those who are working behind the scene, all the media person, all the IT person, all the sports staff, those who really put hard since for the last so many days to make this event happen. With these few words, thank you from my side, and I'll hand over the mic to Dr. Nargis for her final thoughts.
Thank you so much, sir. It was wonderful session. You led a wonderful session over here. And at this point, I extend my thanks to all of the members. And I hope and I foresee that this collaboration will continue in our future. And we will work together to bring some significant change and beneficial for the humanity. And at this point, I would request all the members to have a tea. Unfortunately, it's a virtual meeting.
Virtually. Okay.
And we have a tea break for 45 minutes. And the next session, our technical session will start at 12:30.
12:30.
Is that so, sir? Yeah, 12:30, and we will join it again at 12:30. And till then, have a nice tea, a cup of coffee virtually. But Dr. Uzma Ashik and Sir Shahid Minhas, we were discussing that, and our Vice Chancellor also gave us the green signal that after this conference, we will have a get together. We will dine together, lunch together, and have a cup of tea together, and we will celebrate our this marvelous event. I'm sorry, Mihaela. I wish you will join us on that eve too, but might be we will join you in near future. And I'll be really thankful to you for sparing some time. It's so much early in this morning. From 6, I think it's about 8 o'clock in the morning now there, and you have to go. Thank you so much, and we will join back at 12:30. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and Allah Hafiz.
Allah.